Welcome, Amy, and thank you for chatting with us this evening.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I love that I get to share about this project that means a lot to me. And I'm currently putting it into a book that will be released probably next year. And so it's exciting to feel this momentum building up about this kind of project for me.
So, well, we're going to dive into it tonight and encourage everyone to send questions in the chat if you have them, and then we'll ask them after Amy's kind of shared her story with us. And also, really, just an amazing example of storytelling. We talk a lot in grief work about the importance of storytelling and how, as long as we're telling their stories and sharing their memories and their wisdom, there's a piece of them that still exists with us. And she took that and turned it into something that was, more than words, something three-dimensional and tangible. So that's super cool.
Cool.
So Amy's going to share a slideshow and walk us through this amazing show that she made.
I will. I totally will. And I'm going to first give a little bit of an example of how it came to this, or a little bit of story about how I came to making this kind of artwork. And again, thanks for letting me come and talk about something that I love. And so because of this, there's the show is called The Art of Family Tragedy and How to Be Amazing Anyway. That was the first show. And then there was a closing show a couple years later called A Viewing, Art on Death and Reconciliation. And the original show came about because I had been making collage for years. But before that, I grew up with an amazing mother who was always sad and always wanted to die. She was always so traumatized or so hurt and sad by the death of her little sister that as a kid, it scared me when she wanted to die and would say, I'm going to kill myself. Nice knowing you. I'm sorry, I got to go. And at a certain point in my childhood, I decided that, if that's what makes her happy, then I get to be okay with that. So how can if that's what makes you happy, then okay. Can I go dig up the dog in the backyard? And that kind of started my fascination and acceptance with death. And I got to dig up our beautiful Doberman and recognize his bones. And I found a dead crow shortly after that. That was beautiful, that I got to inspect. And I just started collecting bones and making little bits and pieces and kind of shrines and altars. And, years later, as a collage artist and a painter, I ran into, and I'd been making collage with found papers and old photographs and Victorian bits and pieces, and kind of inventing the story or letting the story come out that I didn't know, that wasn't my personal story, that belonged to other people from their found bits and pieces. And I eventually found a book on the death of this child, my mom's little sister, and it explained how she died and that she could have been saved. And so it put a whole new spin on why it was so tragic and why it hurt my mom so much, and why it was a little bit of a controversy in our community. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. I've lived here all my life, and I feel like I've been an artist all my life. And so the story of her death, it moved me because of how it went down. And so I was able to take all these schoolwork and bits and pieces and paper and her clothing and even her singing and make a show for my mom called The Art of Family Tragedy and How to Be Amazing Anyway, because we inherit, my daughter inherited this darkness. I inherited the story, or this thing that was between the relationship and between my mom and I, this story that made my mom want to sleep all day long and never interact in her life. And eventually it became a really great crutch, to the drug addict and to just kind of check out of life. But part of putting this show together was for her, because it was such a wild story that no one was there to help this child that day. And so I put the original show together. And my mom got to see that show, and I'll start with some slides from that. And that show it's an installation show. It has a wall of her, the papers, the receipt from her death, because the medical team did not help her that day. They said she was just vomiting because she'd had too much picnic. She was in a car crash. She was drugged 125 feet through a ditch. She was on a Girl Scout outing. She had a nurse and a Girl Scout leader driving the car. And this was also the year before I was born. So the car got out of control. Susan was kind of knocked out of the car, but hung up on the car at the same time. And so she was dragged through a ditch until the car hit a pole. And then they had to use a tire jack to get the car off of her, at which point they had her get up and walk to a stranger's car. And the woman driving, the nurse, Girl Scout leader, chaperone driving the car, wanted to rush her own daughter to the hospital. So she had Susan get in a car with a stranger. Susan was 11 years old and she was covered in mud and was just bleeding a little bit, but was a little bit in and out of consciousness. So she gets a ride home. She arrives home. My grandfather doesn't know what's happened to her, but he rushes her to the hospital. Because he doesn't know what's happened to her, they accuse him of doing this to her, of child abuse. And then they learn it was the pediatrician was called to come in. They say they can't do x-rays. There's no neurologist there that day. It's the weekend, it's 1968. This particular nurse decided to call, once she realized it was a Girl Scout outing, she in her mind thought that she was just being sick because she ate too much picnic. And Susan basically died on the floor of a cerebral hematoma that she could have survived from. And we eventually had the medical examiner, he wrote a note saying that she could have survived and it was a tragedy. And because of the bitterness of no one taking accountability and no one helping her at the scene and at the hospital, that just set my family off into this world of pain and trauma and unable to get with it. So my job was to celebrate Susan because she was more than what took her life. She was awesome. She knew sign language, she sang. And as we often do with children is that we elevate them. Like in my mind as a kid, she was this, beyond human angelic creature that I could never be like. And I got to bring her down with she's all that, but she was also a little girl just having fun and didn't want that just to be her life. So I will share the screen and start the slideshow. All right. So I think I can make it bigger. Is this okay? Everybody see okay? Okay, awesome. And you can hear me too? Cool. So this was the original collage that I had done for an art show that has, we have lots of pictures of Susan in her coffin. My family insisted on keeping her, they were told to have a closed casket and my grandmother insisted on having an open casket because of her head injuries, because you could see there's a little swelling behind her eye. I can't catch it in the photos very much, but it meant a lot to my grandmother to show these pictures. And so there's a picture of her with her little Girl Scout uniform on in the circle, and there's music behind her and some sign language because she did a lot of plays in the playhouse, and my grandmother worked a lot with the blind and deaf, and so Susan was often along with her. And Susan was 10 years younger than my mother. And this is a detail of that piece. And there is a letter referencing, talking to lawyers saying we need something to be done, that this child was killed and there's no one there for it. And this was a write-up that I found in a book on no-fault car insurance, which kind of told the story of what happened, kind of what I just went through with you. And so she was dead within 6 hours of the accident. And it sent my grandparents on a heartbroken mission for justice. They would never know, and a pain and suffering that carried over to other family members, unable to let go of this child that they adored so much. My family was changed forever by this darkness. And so I created a wall with Susan's schoolwork. There's lots of flowers. That's her little dress that I have. And there's a handmade sign that my grandparents made, because they even pestered the Kennedys. They went all through the community trying to get people to take accountability. If you were a passenger in a car and you died, you got nothing for it. They got like $50. And they just really wanted someone to pay. They wanted someone to blame. And the family driving the car, the woman driving the car had 2 daughters that were friends of Susan's. They were all friends. And it, that's the trauma that affects everyone. Like that scatters far and wide. And there again is her dress, and that's Susan closer to the time of her death. And I can slow down anytime. Part of the installation was a piece that is a gurney, that's an old metal gurney, and I covered it with flowers and bones, all kinds of bones, and blonde white horsehair. And the idea was that that would be up for the duration of the show, and more bones were exposed as the flowers dried and died, because they were bundles of fresh flowers. And this is kind of the end. And there's another pile of bones in that back corner. This is another, that wall again with different writing, because my grandmother wrote about it extensively, but she never talked to me about it. She talked to me a lot about not being right, about not being like you are no good. But I always loved her for it. It was okay. So this photo, I don't know if you can see, because of I see your images on the side, but there was a neat orb. I took a photo of the wall, and then she has this little glowing reflection on her. And I tried to look for the lights, but to see if that's what made it. But I like to think she was like, this show is cool. My mom actually got to come to this show, and it meant so much to her. And there was even family that came to this show because it was kind of publicized. Family members that I had never met before, but that knew about the accident. And I was hoping, that's my thing, was I was hoping to find people she went to school with, because she had gone to elementary school here. And I knew there were people that would know her that would have remembered the accident. And so these are collages that were based on my daughter. My daughter got pegged with being the one most like Susan when she was born. And so that made it kind of heavy. My mom was really kind of so wrapped up in the trauma that her thing was like, I hope she makes it past 11. She didn't want to say her name. She was really consumed by the fear of losing Helen. And so there's great, I love the little thing like the paper clip in that collage. And it's a report that my grandmother wrote on the Iliad. So it says literature in the Iliad. And this was before Susan was even born. So it's kind of tying in her history and her life and kind of who she was before she was a mother. And then on the right side is my daughter wearing Susan's dress with a pastel, like there was lots of artwork done for Susan after she passed away. And then this is a piece that it is in reference to my grandmother. That's her and my grandfather, and love letters between them when they were trying to get together, and she was in Chicago and he was in town, and kind of this layering. And there's also letters from other people. So for me, it was this kind of coming together, this alchemy of who she was as a person that brought her to this place of having children and then suffering this loss, and then living her life in that loss. And on the other side is there was beautiful, I have a box of beautiful condolence cards, sympathy cards that were just written so beautifully. The language is a little more direct around death. A lot of people reference their own children dying in car crashes or being hit by cars. It was, I don't know how you are dealing with the sorrow. It feels like when you read them that it's a little more than how we talk about death now, how we will talk to people that have lost someone. It feels like, we have the thoughts and prayers thing rather than this real outpouring of kind of acknowledging death and grief. And this is a beautiful layer of a friend of mine that worked at the Field Museum in Chicago was like, I pulled out something from the dumpster for you. And it's a stack of x-rays, prints of x-rays of mummies. And they're actually behind me on the wall. She thought I would use them in artwork. And I'm like, this one I'll use in artwork, but the rest I have to have printed. This was the flyer for the show. At the light and the dark. The collage is my dark work. It's heavy, it's haunting, it's oftentimes about death. The How to Be Amazing Anyway part are paintings that talk about living with gratitude, making an altar, taking care of yourself, kicking ass, loving yourself. And there's always humor within it for me as well, because the underbelly of that collage and that incredible old frame is a letter that my grandmother wrote me that it's something along the lines that a girl who does not dress or groom properly, I was probably 14 at the time, has low self-esteem, is not a person that people want to be with, to seek to be with or look up to, mother not in control, needs parental guidance, just this great, like, I loved her letters. She would write these hilariously mean letters. And for some reason, it didn't click with me. Like, one of them was like, "Dear Amy, I'm in the hospital. I'm in the same hospital room that grandpa died in. The tragedy of my life is your haircut." Like something so silly like that. It's just great. And through all this, I feel like I bring the humor to it because this is what has been created. This is like my love of death, and it's just kind of what happened. This is a piece that is a beautiful picture of my grandmother in sympathy cards and letters she got from friends after the loss, and also having a baby. I love the little baby thing, and Susan is right in there.
Susan is from Des Moines.
There's just a few minutes here. It's kind of a long song, but I'll just play a few minutes.
Susan has kind of a sad song to sing. A 10-year-old would sing this song. It's all about the day the circus left town.
So it's an audio recording I found of her singing, which I had playing during the duration of the whole show. She holds it down so long. This song is like 7 minutes and she just keeps going.
It's so good. Her voice
So
sounds
good.
so much more mature than an 11-year-old's typically would. It's like strong.
Yeah. And in the end, he's like, what a sad song for a little girl to sing. When I first got it taken from the little reel to the CD and I heard it in my car, like it just was like, whoa.
It's haunting. It's, there's something innocent and haunting about it at the same
Yeah,
time.
right. There was gospel songs too they were singing that were put on repeat because it felt like a way for her to be there. And I can send this PowerPoint for you to share with people if they would like, so if they want to hear more, but I can keep going if you like.
Yeah, definitely keep going. We'll probably give about half an hour for questions if we need to, 15 minutes, depending on how much longer.
I'm curious what the lyrics were, though. I couldn't really make out a lot of the words.
Right, I had to do that too. So if you look up a song called "The Day the Circus Left Town"
Okay.
by Eartha Kitt. Well, Eartha Kitt was the one that she knew sang it. I have the music for it still. It's just this sad little song about the day the circus left town.
Okay.
But it's so cute, and it was great to hear it. And so the PowerPoint cuts, I got to get better at PowerPoint, but so there was hundreds and hundreds of photos, her little wallet-sized photos that my grandmother wrote on the back of him. Killed in car crash, died in car crash, fatally killed in car crash, different ways of writing so she could give to everyone. She was neurotic. She was obsessed with sharing this with everyone and making sure everyone knew. And so I wanted it to get passed to me. I took it on to share it in a different way because the idea for me is to release the family trauma, to release that and to celebrate her amazingness and let it go. I mean, I died a couple times of heroin overdose. I had a terrible alcohol problem for 10 years. And it was just like, nobody wanted me to do anything different in my family. Everybody was like, or my mom in particular, it took me till I was probably 30 years old to realize my job isn't to make her happy, because she was really stuck in the cycle of believing this. Well, this happened. So showing her this show just really blew her mind. And this is one of the pieces. When my mom died, I was her caretaker for years, and she died. So she was born 8/1/47 and she died 4/7/18. So that was a wild number thing a little bit, but when she died, it was kind of unexpected, but she had been sick for a really long time. And I was in the room with her. I saw her the night before. The story was that she had a heart attack and she fell. And when I got to the hospital after they told me that, it had been like 40 minutes that she hadn't taken a breath. I'd been there right away, but you know, it's so difficult. Like there was a no DNR. She had broke a rib doing CPR. She would not have wanted to come out of whatever just happened to her. But when she died, I was with her in the room. It was dark, and I asked her what she needed to know. I'm a meditator, I'm a yoga practitioner, I'm a cosmic kind of thinker, and she blasted my heart. Like there was just a moment, and I had my sketchbook with me and I wrote it all down because I just closed my eyes, and she'd said all her dogs that she'd ever known were around before. She'd been unresponsive for several hours at this point, but I just said, what do you need me to know? How can I love you? What do you need? And she blasted my heart. Like it was boom. And I tried to get to heart center and meditation classes and this and that. And she was the key, you know, and there's a lot of violence with her. I've had stitches in my eyes. I've had my ass kicked. I've had all kinds of stuff go on with her and a lot of emotional craziness. But because of sobriety, I got to rise above it and let her be her, but also create boundaries and also help her learn from my recovery that you don't get to act like that or treat me like that. And it was all good in the end, but she blasted my heart. And she came to me as herself without addiction, without depression. It was the pure, like I felt her. I have goosebumps thinking about it. Like I had not felt her since I was a child and only wanted her. Like it came back to me in a rush. There's a photo and I'm sad in the photo. I'm probably 3 years old, but it was because they took me out of her arms in this photo. And I could not reach that point with her in the last few years. I couldn't remember that. And at that moment of her transition, it was all there. My adoration and the joy and the blessing of being adored by a mother, the ferocity of being adored by a mother was huge. And eventually, as she took her last breath, I felt it in my veins. It was like glitter just shimmered through my veins, and it was wild. So that's when I stayed with her body. I went with her to get cremated. I asked if I could keep the bones because I know that you can ask that. I know that they grind down the bigger bones. And she's on my altar now in these beautiful bones. The funeral home has been amazing. The caregivers were incredible. They were kind of excited that I wanted them. They let me push the button and lead her into the crematorium and be there for that at a time where I think we're programmed to leave our people. You know, we leave them for someone else to take care of. And I think people suffer some loss of closure because you just left your person in a hospital bed and who knows what that transportation is from there. Like who's going to care for them? And this is a sacred shell right here. And so to be able to wheel her off and push the button and have her bones was incredible. And because I put her ashes in the vault with her little sister, her Susan has been in a vault in a mausoleum since 1968. And so I said, while we're here, let me show you my artwork. Let me show you what I've done before. And can I open the coffin? Can I see the coffin? Because she's in a drawer. There's a little child-sized coffin. And they said, yes. And I was like, what? Never did I think that would be a possibility, but to see a physical presence. First, I heard the voice. I got to hear her voice. I have her clothes. I have her schoolwork. And then to be able to open the coffin and photograph her and have this ending show that's a viewing. So this piece is a part of that viewing. It's more sympathy cards. It's my grandmother's handwriting, killed on a Girl Scout outing, you know, just really in there. And I reached out to the woman that was driving the car, and she had passed away a couple of years ago, but I found her daughters. I found the young girl that was in the car with Susan. So this is Susan in her coffin. You see her little, they're funny with the barrette there because they were trying to hide the swelling that you can't quite see very well here, but she's got her little Girl Scout emblem on, and it's 1968. So she's got a troll with her. I could never figure out what that was. And then I was like, oh, it's a troll. So this is more of the photo album of the flowers and the day of her funeral, which was a packed house. It was a beautiful event. This was my event where I had the similar flowers and the gurney and pieces all over the wall, that little bits and pieces, cards and write-ups. There was a couple obituaries. This is a collage that lights up that is sympathy cards. So when it lights up, it's lovely. And this was the last event, the kind of the closure event, where there is the gurney. That's my mom's dresser. And what's wild about that is that it's been my mom's dresser forever. The drugs were always in the top left drawer. And it smells like her, like it had her smell. She was always into Chanel and her lotions. And she was a classy little druggie and rock and roll mama, you know? And so there's photos around. I didn't share the photos on social media, but you can see the photos. You get a feel for these photos that were really dark of Susan in the coffin. The lid of the coffin was in good shape, but because we liquefy, you know, like, and she's in a metal coffin, you know, nature does what it does. They embalmed her, and the funeral home the directors wanted to see how she had done after all this time. And so this is a side-by-side
Wow.
of her. You see the tarnish of her little Girl Scout pendant, and her dress changed. You know, you see how the dress then evolves into this floral pattern that's lovely. And then the troll is still there. He just kind of fell down a little bit. But to put a physical presence to something that had been so big in my life was really wild. And to also, you know, share that was interesting. There's the troll. He's so cute. I love, it's kind of like this little familiar that got to be with her the whole time. Somebody asked if I wanted him, and I was like, he is absolutely hers. And that was one of the collage pieces as well. And then this was part of the paintings, just to give an idea of that, the How to Be Amazing Anyway. Like, this was a piece that was about loving yourself. And it's a little bit of a map of my tattoos. It's cut off, but I can send other pictures of that. But that's about, you know, doing your best and opening your heart. And there's there's a quote at the bottom that is just about getting in your life and being there for others, and not being afraid, and not thinking so much of yourself that you forget to see about what you bring to the room. And the piece with the scarab and the snake is about gratitude, you know, getting grateful. Gratitude was a big thing for me, getting present, being grateful in my recovery. And just, I knew that what I had been through, what my mother had been through, makes us uniquely qualified to help others. And there was one about creating an altar for yourself. That was part of it. It was like this idea of tools that we can use. And the other painting is called Kick Your Inner Ass. And it's about just that voice that tells you, for me, it was like, nobody wants to see that. Don't do that. Do your thing. You know, just that doubting voice rather than rising above. And that's it, I believe.
Wow.
It's just so special. It's so special.
Like, wow.
There's a lot of love.
Yeah.
A triumph too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's so many of the things we talk about conceptualizing. You've done it. It's such a gorgeous tribute to grief, and really like the deeper levels of healing family trauma, like lineage trauma in the present time, and the way that you can heal something in the present and it can move backwards and forward.
Yes.
Time, right?
Yes. And that was the idea. So that show was only supposed to last one night, but people were like, we need to come. Can I bring someone? It lasted a week. Wow. And so the offering was people to bring your own writing, your own story, your own images, and I'll put them in a community collage, or you can bring bits and pieces to burn, to put in the fire, because we carry these stories and sometimes we don't know it. You know this, you are probably way familiar with it than I was at the time, but it was moving to have so many people show up and want to share and participate, and not realize that maybe it was someone else's story that might be holding us back.
Totally. Yeah. I've seen that too before, like the way that, your mother was just angry and like couldn't allow herself to be happy, but also didn't allow herself to like grieve intentionally. And I think there's a connection there. I think it's that intentional grief, like almost a commitment to your grief that ultimately allows you to have some freedom on the other side. Not that there's another side of grief, but there is another side of it taking you under.
And I found it
Yeah, right. I think being allowed to go through it rather than trying to sleep through it. Go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, I was just going to ask, well, two things. I found it very interesting, and the only reason I say interesting is because my mom had a similar thing happen with her, but that you said your mom was pregnant with you a year later after her death.
Yeah.
So what if this similar thing happened with my mom, where her mom lost her dad during her pregnancy, and the trauma and the grief of like what was going on while you were creating this life, she feels 100% because it was just so strong at that time that she was born with this like heavy thing. So I'm curious if you ever felt that way, or if your mom shared anything. I mean, obviously her grief was very present since you can remember.
She did not, but I get that. Like, I think of that. Even having my own daughter, I was like, she's going to pick up on this, because I was trying to clear my own static. And as I was working through it, I know that I was born early, and I thought about that before, but in more in the way that we didn't really talk about it. Like, it was always just this car crash. It was a car crash. It was a car crash. It wasn't a car crash where she got drug and had to get up and walk and then got no help. So I'm fascinated at the lack of talking we did about it, because it was so fresh at the time. I was born the year later, so that is wild to me.
Yeah.
Completely wild. Yeah. Her being pregnant with you during that time must have kind of, must have affected you. How could it not?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you find after the show that your daughter had a different reaction too?
The after the first show, she's 22 now, but the first show she was a little bit, she kind of didn't want to go. She didn't want to see it. She wasn't sure about it, because she had an interesting relationship with my mother as well that was heavy, because my mom was demanding her love, and that thing we do where I know she doesn't love me, I know she doesn't want to be around me. And my daughter has really great boundaries and won't play. I wouldn't play in the end either. I'd be like, it's okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow, do what you're going to do, and we'll talk later. But the second show, the viewing, like, I was shocked at all her friends, that she brought friends over. She was really participatory, and it was like a big thing for her. And now I see her go a little bit of that direction in her own artwork, which is kind of fascinating. And I don't go on about it too much to dissuade her or distract her, but the first show, I think, being a young teenager, she was a little bit like, what the hell? But she heard great things about it. And the second show, though, I think she had a little more handle on her own intensity and was like into it.
That had to feel both vulnerable and really gratifying for you.
Yeah, it did, because it's really easy to, and that's why it's great to talk to you too, because it's really easy in this community to be like, am I crazy?
No, just willing to address something that's like taboo. It's very worth addressing. I was wondering when I was listening to your story, especially around your mom, were you worried that anything you included or the way that you interpreted any parts of it would offend your mom or other members of your family?
I was with the opening the coffin. I was like, girl, she just went and opened the coffin, like she did that. It's like, well, that, you let me dig up the dog. So that's where it's come all this way into its full circle. But I did get permission from an aunt, and it's kind of like, okay. But I was also the one there taking care of her. And I was a little nervous that my mom would fall apart at the show, like, because I couldn't take her to the mausoleum without her going back into that moment. I also think she had guilt because she was married at the time that Susan was killed. And my mom made up these crazy stories about how terrible and awful and abusive and hungry and undressed and her childhood was. And that was kind of part of the story. But I would always see amazing pictures of how well dressed and well fed, and they were members of certain community stuff. And the funniest thing is that I have been through my mom's whole house. And when she died, I went one last trip before selling the house, and I got in the attic. And under some insulation, I found a box, and it was school papers talking about how incredible and brilliant, how she loved her mother, how wonderful life was, how fun. It's like, you did this thing. Like, so it's such a great finale, little twist, that she just bought this whole story. Like, she had to really go hard on the story of Susan, which was a real tragedy and terrible, but also adding to it, there's some mental illness there to blame your whole family for abuse that didn't happen. And I'll tell you that I found the woman that was in the car with her. It's a set of twins. It is Marla and Mary Ellen McBride. And because I'd always heard that name, that we're going to get them, because the community, it was just a terrible thing. Everybody was so mad. And I found Mary Ellen, and she's a therapist in Kansas City. And I wrote her a letter inviting her to the show, because I invited the hospital. I invited the Girl Scouts. I invited everyone that was involved to, so we could all be clear of the blame and the resentment for this, for my family's sake and for their sake, and they came. And that was really cool. But I got her number, and then I called her, and she said, text is better. And then I texted her, and then she said, you have the wrong person. Like, I have no idea who you're talking about. Don't ever contact me again. And it was like, you can't, there's not two sets of the same twins with kind of unique names. But I was like, okay. Well, first I was like, oh. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is about healing. This is about softening. This is about letting go. She doesn't want to talk about it. But that really got me.
Yeah. I wonder if they have ever dealt with it, or if they still have this kind of fear of that everybody blames them in a way, even though, they were children at the time.
Right.
Yeah. But if they grew up in a town that harassed their mother and then, that kind of
sounds
thing.
Like both of my grandmother and that woman driving the car had to work together at a hospital after the fact.
Wow.
It's wild. And because I've seen letters, and one moved to California and one's in Kansas City. And I sent them invitations to the show. And I sent an invitation to the daughter, who I found on Instagram, not trying to push it, but you could benefit from this too. But it just that resistance was fascinating. Because I know it was hard on them too.
Had to have been.
Yeah. I think I really liked the fact that you opened it up for others to share their stories too, because I think that just the invitation of seeing this and knowing that another family has gone through grief, sometimes people need permission, as weird as that sounds. It's like, we need permission to know that it's okay to tell our story, that it's okay to grieve, that it's okay to remember tragedies and that kind of thing. So I think that was really cool of you. I don't know if that's the right word, but I love that even, manifested during this show.
Well, along the same lines, I think, I'm so hooked on your guys' tagline of changing the way we do death. And that's just all of this is like, here, let's do something different. Let's not go down the same path. Like I saw both of my parents just, die in a hospital. I never saw them again. Whereas my close personal friend that just died a few months ago, I was there with her almost to the end, and then got to handle her body and go with her to the cremation. It's like, yeah, start thinking differently. This is totally different. And to your point, Lauren, invite other people in. It's not going to get infused in the culture unless people are brought in. And so bringing it in as an event and throw in great artwork, all that stuff. Yeah, start thinking different. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a hospice volunteer as well. So I had these grand ideas and I would love to be a death doula. And I had these grand ideas of going in and I'll make this dying beautiful for you. Yay, you're dying. It's amazing. Let's do it, and it's not really like that. But we're revamping this whole beautiful hospice center that we have. And I was like, they don't want to do art with you. They don't want to hear your stories.
Yeah.
But I was like, it can't be drugs and daytime TV all day long, can it? Like,
Well,
but
it's
it
gotta
is
be education before they're in hospice.
Yes.
By then it's too late to introduce a lot of new ideas, right?
Yeah.
So that's really why Lauren and I like kind of landed on education being our main bag, because you can make the most change when you're talking to people who are not terminal or not, you know, in a practical way facing death. It's much more easy to have fun with it and do art projects with it when it's theoretical, right? And when it's still far out there. But that's simultaneously really useful because you can make practical choices out of like logic instead of out of fear or scarcity or a shortness of time.
Yeah.
And also, if there's some lasting legacy of that person that demonstrates that, you know, we all know death is inevitable, but their legacy goes on, and that way they don't die. I just recently watched a great documentary by you may be familiar with the filmmaker Agnes Varda, and it's about, there's 3 different ones where she collects a lot of stuff and makes artwork out of it. And then she also talks about the legacy of her husband. And then the last one is about her own dying, you know, inevitable. So again, introducing things in a different way to have a conversation about death is what we need more of. And to Erin's point, do it while they're still healthy, because we all know we're going to get there.
Yeah.
You know?
I have my son, my daughter doesn't want anything to do with it, but my son is on board with installation art for me, against a tree, slowly getting decked out. I'm like, will you deal with the body? He's like, I'll do it. So we have a plan. We have a plan in place. And she's like, you all can get on with that. And a friend recently passed away that I got to sit with and read to and, you know, chat with her and kind of be that person that it's not a normal for me, but that could talk about things that the family doesn't want to hear about. Like, and just be there in that presence and not be afraid or not be so sad about that. And working with her and her 6 daughters, I get to make a beautiful collage for her. Like, we're using old photos and we're using fabrics, and just that legacy of kind of the depth of who we become.
It's such a gift to give a family, and like something they'll pass down and keep for so many generations until they don't even know who it's about anymore, because it's so removed, you know.
I love that.
Yeah.
I did a project like that at a nursing home where they do big art shows. And I said, if I'm doing an art show here, I want to work with the people that are here. And it is a multi-level, not even all a nursing home, but like 5 people were super into it. And one woman was in her 80s and gave me this collection of things from her mother, who died when she was 3. And she still had a letter from her that, you know, before she could read, and like a spoon and some fabrics. And they were so on board with giving me these incredible pieces that they got the artwork in the end, but they gave me papers and photos and glasses and all kinds of knickknacks to put in these collage for them to pass on to their family. And it was beautiful. I was so excited that they saw it, they got it, because I wasn't sure that they would think of this collage project as something they want to participate in, and it was awesome.
I have one more question and then I'm done.
Yes.
So, you know, you mentioned your relationship with your mom was pretty rough, yet you still showed up for her as her caretaker at the end. Do you think that, we talk about this a lot in some of our classes, that like there's a different kind of grief when you have this, you know, not a great relationship with the person? Do you think because you were with her at that time that you had a different healing experience versus if she just died on her own somewhere?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And even through the roughness, like her roughness came from being mad at us for growing up, for being mad. I have an older sister. She was mad that I left her. She wanted to assume that I liked a boy more than her. And she was intense. You know, she was just a Leo, and she was aggressive, and she wouldn't get out much, and just needed what she needed. And the last several years, you know, it was unfortunate that she was ill and medicated and not feeling right, but we got to work on a lot of that. And I was very honored to be there with her, and kind of laugh at that. Like at times I'm like, I wouldn't be who I am today without working on our, you know, working on our relationship together, me getting to know her, because you know she was somebody before I came around, and just letting her express that. Our thing would be driving around and listening to music. I have a huge playlist. She would leave like the song names, little bits of pieces of paper with song names on them. Like I was like, what? Why do you have Kanye on here? Like, how do you know about Kanye? And she just loved this wide variety of music. But we would drive around and listen to music, and that was her portal to her world, to her past, because she used to love to and dance and the blues clubs, and then just music and dancing. And you know how important that is to people, but it was like I wasn't even in the room, but she could live her life driving in my car listening to music. It was cool. I think our relationship, I think if she would have died alone somewhere, even her mother in all her anger and bitterness, she died alone in her apartment with a broken hip with a bottle of Drano in her face, because no one told my mom that no one was taking care of her at the time. The caretaker left, and she was so crushed by that, even though their relationship was bad. I imagine that it would be difficult to not have the relationship, to not show up.
I love that you said, this is such a great question for a death doula to give to families, was, who are you? Who were you before I came along?
Yeah.
That's just such a simple thing. And it's a thing that maybe we don't know about our parents, which is part of their legacy. What were you like as a child? What were you like as a teenager and a young adult? And, you know, I know who you are as my mom, but who were you before that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to see our parents as whole people. My daughter just said that to me recently, like, and it was in a negative context because she was mad at me. But she was like, she's 18, she's getting ready to move to college. She's like, I no longer see you as the perfect mother. I see you as a whole person now. And I'm like, thank God. And she's like, I don't mean that in a good way.
That's great.
Yeah.
It is wild.
I am curious about when you had her exhumed from the mausoleum to look at her. Did they charge you for that?
They did a little bit. I remember thinking I wouldn't do it if it was expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But they did a little bit, and it wasn't unheard of because I already had the papers that we owned, we owned the drawer, the mausoleum space, and that it was great to me that they were going to let me put my mom's ashes in there with her. So it's a little coffin, and then there's a box of ashes, and it was not unheard of. It was not even like a wild thing, and it was, you know, it was private. They wanted to be there. We did the funeral ourselves. I kind of officiated it, and you know, it's funny how they can still charge you for that, for just using their space, but I get it. You know, the business, it's like a thing. Yeah. And but it was very quiet and lovely, and they were accommodating, and it felt really like they're on board with these new, like, I'm like, can I work here?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really
when
cool.
You said the thing about they let you keep some of your mom's bones, that blew my mind.
Yes, me too.
You must have just had some kind people, because I've had people ask, and I've had them every single time say no.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
I'm always advocating for it because I think it's really freaking cool. But her and my other funeral director friend are like, we can't do that. So when you said that, I was like, oh, she got lucky.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So part of
they're beautiful. They're kind of chalky and white, and they're in a beautiful crystal bowl with some other things. And I was shocked, you know, just like my sister has half of them, and they didn't even bat an eye.
Have the bones changed over time? Do they look different?
They've gotten a little dustier.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that they're like porcelain. They're so white, and you can see where the inner is like that little foamy. It's kind of like a brittle foam that happens. And I don't know if they never had anybody ask, but I got the little tag and the Ziploc with them. And bones are kind of my thing, where other people have like crystals, and bones are something I love. So that was just another thing that was like, oh my gosh, like I have dog skulls. You know, this is the first Doberman I dug up. You know, his name was
Matt. Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was in the late 80s. I got to get him, and it was so wild to recognize him. You know, like I didn't expect to recognize the facial features, and I did, and it was wild.
I love that you've kept that after all these years, and that it was such a, you know, dear and special thing. It was foretelling.
Yeah, I know, that's what I mean. Like, oh, you know,
Uh-huh.
this is how we get to saving bones and opening caskets, you know.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, we only have 5 minutes left, and we would like to answer any questions. I know we just have David and Leah here with us. So David and Leah, please feel free to unmute yourself if you want to connect at all.
Well, I'm thinking now of all the things I'm inheriting from my lost girlfriend, that I might put something together to bring her legacy back to her family in Germany that she was really cut off from. And it was nice at our going away celebration a few weeks ago that she didn't, you know, say anything about me in her last words to talking to Aaron. I thought that was great, because I was only there for, you know, like a sixth of her life. And I realized she had so much more of a life that had nothing to do with me. So I would rather, and having to go through some of her personal stuff, I'm seeing some of that, but I don't know the stories behind it all. So if I could just find the appropriate things and somehow put it together to share with her family, I think that would be a real celebration of who she was. Mm. So, and you're inspiring me to look into that, and just putting together the little, you know, thing we had the other day of pictures of her is like, well, you could put stuff together really easily and make something nice. So thank you for inspiring.
Awesome. I love that. That's it. Those little bits and pieces and awesome little, you know, what we leave behind is so cool.
Yeah, I'm going to make sure I give the tooth I just had extracted to my daughter, so she'll have part of my body. She's going to get the bones.
I have all my so much.
I took my daughter's baby tooth, and it was a crowned baby tooth, and I had it made into a thumb ring. Like,
oh, that's cool.
Oh, wow. I never knew what to do with my children's teeth.
We just let Yara in, but we're almost done. It started at 7 Mountain Time, and I know you're in Arizona. We did record this, and so we'll put it up in the member section, but I am going to give a little shout out to you.
Yeah.
So this is the Prairie Majesty Oracle that you illustrated. Oh, wait, hold on. Can we see it? Kind of.
Camera. Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah.
Like, the lighting isn't the best there. And you made it with Kara, is it Simons or Simmons?
Kara, Simon, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Simon, yeah. So you can find this. Where can people buy it?
You go for
love it.
There is Joyful Resonance, joyfulresonance.com has a link to it. And I'm on Instagram as Amy Putney Koenig. There's a little link there too, but the website is joyfulresonance.com. It is, I'm super proud of it because it's so well written, and it's 48 cards plus 4. And we use the prairie plants and animals to just ask questions and dig deeper. I feel like it's gentle but direct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just picked cards. I'm trying to, this lighting is too much. Hold on, let's see. Let me see. I love it. This one says dive. What is ready for action? And then the other one that I just pulled was blow, which has wind, and it says, how can I deepen trust that my intuition knows the way? So I just love them, and they come with a book. So beautiful. And then one last thing before we go is our stickers finally arrived.
Yay!
So all members are going to get free stickers. If you want to, in the membership section, email your address, we will get these sent out to you. So this one is really cute. It says death, think outside the box.
I love it.
Yeah, and we have a lot of new merch that's going to be coming up soon. We just kind of got our ducks in a row around that, and we'll start, you know, just simple, quirky stuff that you can use as advertisement for death conversations, for being death positive, for getting people to have those hard conversations that are so important and, you know, ultimately nourishing, but hard to break into sometimes.
Good. Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. And Yara, I really am so eager to connect with you. So I'm sorry that we missed you today, but it's 8 o'clock our time here, so it's ending. But we'll see you. I hope we'll see you tomorrow in Death Festival.
You will, on time. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you very much, Amy. That was
Thanks,
really
Amy.
inspiring, and it was altruism memorialization next level, really,
Awesome.
and so much healing potential in that kind of work.
Thank you
I'll
so
never
much.
forget when we reached out together, because it was Valentine's Day, and you just, everything was blowing my mind, and I just kept saying yes, 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 yes. So I'm so glad that we found you and that we're able to share you with everybody. And I think you're
Me
doing
too.
great work.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
See ya.
I appreciate what you do and sharing with the world. And I hope to get to more of your classes. I'm gonna get there.
Welcome to them.
Yeah.
It's our
We
privilege.
gotta get to Colorado.
Yes, come out to Colorado. We'll have a
Yeah.
show for you.
I
Well,
love
the whole death. Oh my gosh, now I'm getting
Yeah.
ideas. A whole
Yeah.
death
Do something
weekend.
like that. We could collaborate on some type of an event if you wanted to.
Yeah. I would love to. And initially this show was going to be at a funeral home because I wanted people to come into people come into a funeral home different. So,
They do.
it's like I'm in a funeral home because I had programs from her funeral. So people came and they got the program, and then, it's the parasympathetic nervous system. It's this whole way our bodies react. And so the whole show was going to be in a place where you walk in and it's a funeral home because people are different. We have a different way of programming it. And so I felt that it could be beneficial and healing to send people through this art show and be like, oh, it can be beautiful. People don't know how to act sometimes at the
and it can be raw and honest. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like buttoned up, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I'm sure all the books of there's the one that Making an Exit where she talks all about like, if you cry at this kind of funeral, you'll be shaming the person. If you don't laugh at this funeral, then you're upsetting them. And if you, look at it's so wild. It's so wild. So I appreciate so much what you do and how you're showing up to educate others and make it cool and make it also, what is that when you can attainable, like it's you can interface with what you're doing, and it's really cool.
Thank you for that feedback. That's important to us. We don't like gatekeeping environments, especially for things like death that belong to everybody.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well,
Cool.
thank you.
Right.
We'll
Thank you
send
so
you this
much.
recording. And so again,
Awesome.
thank you so much. Have a great night.
I hope my people didn't show up because of the time thing, but it'll all be okay. Thank you so
Yes.
much. You have a great
We'll
time
do
too.
the recording, and you are welcome to share it.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.